The following is a discussion with Matteo, co-founder and CEO of 8 Sleep. 8 Sleep is a pioneer in sleep with a sleep mattress technology, and they have raised more than $170 million of investment from some of the best funds in the world. I'm Kyriakos, founder and CEO of Terra, and started this podcast with my co-founder Rauf to speak about wearables, fitness, and health with some of the best people in this industry. Together, we build an API, Terra, that makes it easy for apps to connect to wearables. Let's jump into Miami. What's going on there? We hear so much about Miami, and I think you are a big advocate, especially on Twitter, about Miami. Can you build a great company there?
Yeah, I would probably say that now is in the US is probably the best place or one of the best places. There are so many people in tech, from crypto to Web3 to Web2. There is a lot of money going around. There are a lot of influencers that can help you, particularly if you have a consumer business, right? From the mayor to pump. Um, and I mean, I can't keep up with the number of meetings and events. Last week there was Miami Hack Week. There is Miami Tech Week coming. There is a Bitcoin conference coming, and then there is also sport, Formula One coming, tennis coming.
Does it have the same effect with the networks effects that San Francisco had like 2 or 3 years ago?
It looks like San Francisco in 2015. At least, I mean, I lived there in 2015, so it's the same, but it's probably better for two reasons. One obvious is the weather. So there are a lot of events outdoor in beautiful houses. So it's just really nice to hang there with other founders. And two, there is this new sense of a new community, right? So everything is fresh. It's not that there are, I don't know, a bad mouth from all the events. Everyone is really positive. Everyone just moved here. So um, everyone wants to make the city a big deal,
Is
particularly
there,
the mayor.
is there anything that you find in Miami and you couldn't find in San Francisco?
I think there is this attitude and energy, and the the weather. And for me, the other big thing is here you can have a house, right, instead of just an apartment. And so I work 90% of my time from my backyard. And this morning I played tennis at 7:30, and then by 8:30 I was
I
back
just saw
home.
your Twitter, by the way, about it.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, the amount of workouts last year compared to 2019, which was the last full year in New York, it was more than, I think it was double or something like that. So a lot of energy. I don't know. I go kite surfing with Delian at Founders Fund and another person from Atomic. And then that same evening, there is a barbecue at an event. On Tuesday night, I didn't go, but there was a meetup. It was on a house on the water with DJs. Again, last week there were engineers flying from everywhere here for Miami Hack Week. You can't keep
It,
up.
it sounds like a Mediterranean country that does startups.
Yeah, it's the closest thing. That is what I'm liking of Miami. Personally, being European is the closest thing to a European environment. Even because there are so many people from LATAM, right? So the culture is really a mix of American culture, LATAM. There are a lot of Italians here, not in tech, but in general in all the other industries. So, um,
What about
personally, I'm
hiring, though? I think one of the very good reasons that San Francisco was really good was Stanford was there, Berkeley was there, some of the best schools in the world in engineering. And it was really acting as feeder schools into the whole entrepreneurship community. Do you have something similar there?
there is the University of Miami, and I think it's starting a new trend there. But I would say right now the biggest thing is there are companies that are growing quickly here, like Open Store. They're hiring a lot of people. A lot of people are moving here, and then they will start their companies. So if you really fast forward 5, 10 years, we are really at the beginning of a movement because these people come here, they work at Open Store with Keith, they make it big, and tomorrow they will start their own, I don't know, Coinbase. And so at the beginning, there were a lot of VCs, but less operators. Well, instead now there are a lot of operators. And I think that is what will be the real game changer.
And I hear a lot of from founders fund that you mentioned already that they're really big into Miami as well. Are there all the funds there? Do you usually find all the investors around?
I mean, there is them, right? There is SoftBank that is pretty big, but also Valor Equity Partners. Antonio moved here. I mean, that is how the deal happened. We met, we went a couple of times walking at the beach together and discussing the vision of Eat Sleep, what we wanted to do. And then he led our $86 million round. Um,
Wow.
then yeah, and then regularly people are coming here, then a bunch of investors fly in for other boards, because that is the other thing, there are board meetings, and so these people fly in. So right now I think probably, I mean, 70-80% of my board lives in Miami.
Speaking about the product, Matteo, what a fantastic idea! As a normal human being, 33%, and for 33% of our time is spent on bad sleeping. And both myself and Kyriakos use 8 Sleep, and we are big advocates and fan of the product. Can you tell us more about how did you come up with the idea and how you started it?
Yeah, so everything started because I couldn't understand why we were spending a third of our life on a piece of dumb foam while Elon Musk is taking us to Mars. I have always been an athlete. I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to sleep less to work more. I couldn't understand why. No, no, we pretend to go to bed, lie down over this piece of dumb foam, and wake up fully refreshed and recover. It just didn't make sense. So we started looking into that. We created first a cover that was really a sleep tracker, but then we immediately understood people kept asking for temperature regulation because some people feel hot, some people feel cold. We started looking into all the medical research, and we understood that that is the biggest factor impacting your sleep quality outside sleep medical disorders. And so it was very clear that there was a strong demand, and that there was, plenty of evidence that this has an impact on not even just on your sleep, but on toss and turns, wake ups, HR, HRV. Um, and so that is when we pitched that to Khosla. And when Keith led our round, they gave us the money to build the pod. We built it. We launched it in May 2019. And I think that that is when things really started taking off.
Perfect. For those who don't know you, can you give us a bit more details in terms of how do you improve the quality of sleep?
Yeah. So we invented a technology that can improve your sleep through thermoregulation and data. It comes in two form factors. One is a cover that you can install, a topper that you can install on top of any mattress, or you can buy the whole mattress, which is substantially the Lamborghini of mattresses. But what we really do are two core things. One, um, our devices, they come with thermoregulation embedded, and so temperature changes during the night based on your biometrics to help you fall asleep faster, get up to 20% more deep sleep, improve your HRV, and reduce wake ups and toss and turns. We have plenty of data that we deliver that. The second thing is the device is becoming, I would say, almost medical grade accurate in a couple of different dimensions. Right now, we are really accurate at HRV. So we are above 90% accuracy compared to a medical grade device. But in the future, we'll start tackling respiration, which then means snoring and sleep apnea and other um, factors. So if you really fast forward 3 years from now, your bed will become a sort of medical grade device that scans your body and monitors your health every single night, plus optimizes your sleep.
It's funny. The other day, when I started using 8 Sleep, I was quite stressed one day from work. I go back home, I sleep, I wake up, I start coming back, and I get a notification on my phone. And it's like, oh, your heart rate was pretty high last night. You didn't sleep well. Maybe take it easy today. And I was like, is this like, is this like something from movies? Is one of those things that you would expect coming from the future. And yeah, it's like it's what we are seeing as well, which is what is the future of the space, which is going to be prediction based on the data rather than reaction that we knew all the time. right? So in terms of the product, though, why is so? It's like how is temperature correlated with HRV? How is it correlated with deep sleep as well and REM?
Yeah, well, let's start from the latter. So you have obviously a circadian rhythm, right, which is more or less your biological clock, and your body temperature already changes during the day and particularly during the night. When you hear people saying, "Oh, you should sleep at 68 degrees Fahrenheit," that's bullshit. And the reason is that works for 1 hour probably of the night, but again, different sleep phases require different temperatures, and at different points in the night you need and require a different temperature. That is what we fixed. And that, so when you are in deep sleep, usually you need a colder temperature. When you are in REM, you need what is called thermal neutrality, and then a light sleep can be something that is more personal. And so what we see with our data, but people report it also through Whoop and Aura and other wearables, is they can see up to 40% more deep sleep. They can see up to a 30 to 40% reduction in toss and turns and wake ups. And we just ran a study, and I actually am going to tweet about that, where we see a meaningful improvement in HRV. So your HRV go up, I think, by more than 10%, if I remember correctly, just in the first 15 days with the pod. And then we're working on another study that it seems to prove that we also reduce your heart rate at rest by using the pod.
But specifically about the four stages, right? Why do we need deep sleep? Why do we need REM? Should we try to optimize one of the two, for example, or is it for different processes?
So they're for different processes. So deep sleep is really more for, I would say, your body. So it's more about physical recovery. While instead the REM is more for your mental recovery. That is the time in REM when you are dreaming and when you are reorganizing all the information that your brain collected during the day. So deep and REM are extremely important. Light sleep is the one that can be compressed. And that is part of our mission to say, okay, can we compress sleep? Can we help you sleep only 6 hours and get more rest than when you were sleeping 8 hours?
And what's the ideal in this? What's the ideal deep sleep time, let's say, and REM?
Yeah, so usually it's anywhere for each of them between 18 and 25%, assuming you sleep um, around 8 hours. So call it really between an hour and a half plus.
So it's all, and the way it functions. I was like using the Eight Sleep app when we first got the mattress, and it all starts with the temperature that we select, the base temperature, and it's that's the value proposition in terms of changing the temperature to maximize the deep sleep. Can you tell us more about how does your algorithm learn about how to adjust the temperature automatically rather than focusing on the manual input of the users?
Yeah. So there are really three ways temperature can be adjusted. There is one of the manual, your preferences. We learn the preferences. So think about a nest for your bed. Second, there are weather or temperature changes in your bedroom. So let's say the last few days in Miami was pretty cold for our standards. I received a notification that the bedroom is 7 degrees colder and the temperature automatically gets adjusted. And the third, which is the one that in the future will be the most disruptive, is a automatic adjustment in real time based on your biometrics, because again you need different temperature settings at different stages of the night and also based on the different sleep stages, so particularly deep sleep and REM. So our machine learning and AI algo are working to achieve that. The interesting thing is now we start having thousands and thousands of customers, and so we are really able to learn more than what I would say any sleep doctor has ever learned in history. Because in one night we can potentially run a study with, I don't know, 50,000 people, and usually sleep studies apply to 50 to 100 people, and they take 8 months. For us, that would take one single night across a part of our user base.
What are the things that you actually learned? So if you measure so much information until date,
Yeah.
what what did we understand that we didn't know before?
So first, we have hard evidence, measurable evidence that thermoregulation improves your sleep, HR and HRV, right? So we have hard data. Now, part of what we are working on, our ML engineers are working on, is really to understand, okay, how can we keep tweaking temperature? No one knows is, okay, it's very likely that you need a colder temperature for deep sleep, but how much colder? And how different is that between you and me because of my metabolism and yours, or between my wife and I because of different age and gender? And then it also changes based, did you train at 6 p.m. or did you train at 8 a.m.? Because your body temperature is very different and the velocity of your heart rate is very different. And so we call it temperature autopilot. But the first principle is we are developing a technology similar to Tesla. We just don't drive a car, we drive a temperature regulation based on your biometrics.
And I guess this is where the integration with Terra comes handy. What kind of how would you think that data will help you improve the product 10x?
Yeah, at the end of the day, everything we do is data driven because we are big believers that health is personalized. And so we want to have access to as much data as possible from you, um, just to be able to do two things. One, to make autopilot better for you, so you will wake up more energized every morning based on the different circumstances, whatever happened the previous day, right? Doesn't matter if you had pasta and you had a spike with your CGM, or if you train at 6 p.m. So that's one. And today's temperature, tomorrow will be other environmental factors. So autopilot will keep expanding. The second thing is to develop an intelligence in terms of insights, where software can understand better than anyone else in the world that all the times that you do X, Y happens. And Y could be sleep, but it could even be how you feel, or level of energy, or your HR, or your HRV. It could be that you have snoring after certain meals, or not certain activities, but not in other circumstances. And so the part I can't stand is that we don't know what is going on in our body, and that I don't know what is really having the best and most positive impact in what I do. So because I'm obsessed with this, I don't know, I noticed that if I train in the evening, I have no worse sleep, probably because my body temperature changes, because my heart rate goes up and it doesn't go down fast enough by the time I go to bed. And so the best thing for me is to train in the morning. But I live and breathe this stuff. This is my job. How can we democratize this knowledge across millions of people?
What from the wearable data that we have today, which one are you actually excited about? I think the ones that the guys at the levels are working with, glucose, could be a very very interesting one when it comes to sleep, because obviously there's just so much research behind this. When before you sleep, if you ingest an amount of carbohydrates, for example, is going to change your human growth hormone, or if you wake up and eat specific saturated fats, it's going to change your testosterone. But all of these things are in theory, right? So I think it's very very different if you access glucose, if you actually if you if you access glucose in a continuous manner. That's for one though. Which ones do excite you?
So definitely that one. I have noticed on myself that, for example, multiple times when I woke up in the night and I was wearing my levels, there was a glucose spike exactly at the time. I have plenty of evidence. So I'm usually fasting, OMAD, and on a keto. I usually cheat on Friday night, and every Saturday morning I receive a
You
notification.
cheat with carbs or
I
yes?
cheat with
Okay, wow.
carbs, yeah, with pizza.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I receive a notification every Saturday that my heart rate was 10% higher than usual during the night, and it took longer to drop. So I have plenty of evidence there. I think there is, so glucose is really interesting. I think it is really interesting to see again time of training, because it has a major impact on your sleep. HR and HRV, we already have it. Obviously, monitoring that during the day and correlating to the quality of sleep, it's really important. I think there is heart rate recovery. That is a sub metric that just few wearables have. And so it's the ability of your heart rate, how fast does it drop after spiking? Um, because at the end of the day, we want to really correlate sleep quality with general health and wellness and fitness. There could be VO2 max. That is another one that is interesting for us. Um, and body temperature. Body temperature becomes really relevant, particularly for women, because through that you can see things like from pregnancy to period ovulation. And at that point, we change the temperature for them during if they are ovulating.
And speaking of HRV, what's your recommendation? What's the ideal?
For what?
Let's just say maybe longevity, and then about athletes.
So what to do for longevity?
Yes.
So a couple of things. Uh, Sleep, foundational, right? 7 to 9 hours. Training, you should focus on high intensity interval training and strength. So weightlifting, those are the two most important. The key is to really spike your heart rate above 80% of your max, at least twice a week. That is what is really recommended. And then for food, um, fasting is proven to work extremely well. You could do 16/8 or one meal a day. Um, and the other thing is you need to absolutely at least avoid sugar and reduce carbs. But the key is to avoid glucose spikes because they create inflammation, which is the number one reason for a bunch of diseases.
When did you start keto?
3 years ago ish.
3 years ago. Um, with my experience of keto, it's I can be extremely focused and I can get things done, but at the same time, I lose most of my strength when I do weightlifting, right? Um, so probably it's better for longevity, isn't it? Isn't it's not? Maybe it's not for all athletic events. What do you think?
I mean, so first, everyone is different, right? So that is the most important thing that we want to share with everyone listening here, right? I can go and eat one meal a day. When we started using a CGM for my wife, and I was always making fun of her because she was not doing it, we discovered that she had major glucose drops below the minimum baseline. So
Wow.
she couldn't do it. She shouldn't be doing it, right? So for you can be different than from for me for keto. My hypothesis is because for strength training you need mainly proteins than carbs, it shouldn't have an impact. Um, but again, I think this is where companies like us will really change the future of healthcare because in a year or two from now, you will have your own profile and you will know what happens when.
Hmm. When it comes to the to what we mentioned earlier about prediction versus reaction, right? It's one of the foundations of why we started Terra was in the whole medical industry, they understand your body in static samples. So you're going to get data, you're going to do your blood analysis, for example, and get your biomarkers in a static basis. And then you're going to do an X ray or whatever, and it's on a static basis. But then by accessing all that information from Eight Sleep, for example, or from wearables, you access information in a 24-hour fashion. So you have real-time information, and the access to data is so much different because now you know the rate of change instead of a static point in time, and you can be so tailored into each individual.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Super. When you think about like how accessing this abundance of data, you would get some super smart engineers getting access in a super easy way, crunching the numbers and coming up with predictions which would make sense uh, for specific use case. And that's what you said. What you mentioned about each individual is different. So when you look at the data, you see what's tailored for that specific individual, which would make sense from a nutrition perspective, fitness perspective, and everything. One point that is also very important to note is stress and mental, let's say mental wellness in general. It's becoming a big topic. What's your what's your opinion about what should be built to complement what 8 Sleep is offering in terms of sleep? Because it's very correlated, stress levels and sleep.
Yeah. And going back to touch about a couple of points, and then I'll answer your question. So first, I agree, preventative health will be the real game changer. So in the next, I don't know, couple of years, we'll reach a point we will be able to say it's not something just happening. Is look, you if you keep in this direction, you have 80% chances to develop this disease or for this to happen. That will be when healthcare will really change, and we're not that far. A couple of years. Second, going back to your previous question, another area where I would like you guys to build an integration is with blood tests, because blood tests could tell us so much about you, from your stress level, to cortisol, to other multiple factors. I'm doing the Grail test next week, which is the one that is supposed to help you identify certain type of cancers before they are usually discovered. But I also strongly believe that we will see strong correlation between certain blood results and your sleep quality. But we need the integration, so we need that to be very easy. Um, Going back to stress, so we are building a lot of content right now. We just hired a person who comes from a major company. She will lead content for us, and we'll start developing content for mindfulness and relaxation, because it's still one of the biggest factors impacting sleep quality for our users. So we're gonna get there. Um, Personally, what I do, I call it stillness. I was actually doing it this morning. So I try to spend somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes doing nothing and sitting. At the beginning, you struggle a lot because you have this anxiety, the phone, let me touch it. Did anyone write me? What are the news? What's happening on Twitter? But after 20, 30 minutes is when your monkey mind finally starts slowing down, and clarity comes. And I have seen that working extremely well. Is actually a technique that Naval suggested, which is very similar to meditation. But the difference with meditation is not a new effort. Here you do nothing, right? You just let your mind go wherever it wants. And at a certain point, it gets tired to go crazy. At the beginning, it's like a ball bouncing everywhere in a room. And at a certain point, it starts losing speed, and that is when clarity comes.
What else do you do in when it comes to that? You are a CEO of one of the biggest companies in our space. How do you handle it? How do you handle stress? One of the things you mentioned is it's all about sleep. Second, it's all about your training. Third is uh, stillness that you have in the morning. Is this your general routine, or you do something else as well?
Well, workout, fitness. Fitness is the other big one. So really these four things. Sleep. For me, I sleep 8 to 9 hours. I train probably 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7. So I do something every day, right? It's not that I need to be super hard training, but I try to do something almost every day. Then I do mindfulness, and then I take care of my nutrition. Another area that I have seen working extremely well, I'm able to meaningfully change my HR and HRV at night just based on what I eat. I actually tweeted about that the other day. If I had the soup, broccoli soup, I think, I had the ground turkey, grilled veggies, so really light. My heart rate was, I think, 8% lower than my baseline.
Is
And I
there
did it the following night and it was 7% lower. So I confirmed it.
what kind of services or solutions or apps that you use to track and to monitor improvements?
Um, the outside the 8 Sleep app, so I test every wearable. I'm wearing a Whoop at night. I use an Aura. I use levels. So first, I like the space, and second, is part of my job to know what everyone is doing. I use an app that I really like called Zones app, and it's really good to monitor your fitness and to compare it week over week, month over month. and year over year. And it also gives you a very clear snapshot of how much time you spend with heart rate above a certain threshold, which is the key, right? Because there could be moderate training, but if you want to reduce the risk of cardiovascular diseases, you really need to keep your heart rate above the 80% for as long as possible every week. And so that app helps you to do that.
What's how does it change when you are an athlete? Let's just say if you are targeting, if your goal is longevity, then fasting, keto are very important when it comes to nutrition. And then your sleep and your training is specific. How does it change? Let's just say you are an Olympic athlete. Um, what would you do if you were in that situation? And I guess you work with so many of the athletes that you would know best.
Yeah. So based on my understanding, the most recent trends are that athletes, they have a different diet based on different time of the year, right? So my cousin was in the junior national skip team. And so, for example, when he was off season, he was on a keto. The reason was to really now lose weight, become thinner, so it will have less impact on your knees and everything else. But then, and he tried to stay in keto most of the week. But then, let's say the race is on a Sunday, starting on Friday, he started in taking carbs, and he was spiking the carbs the day of the race. And then from Monday back to keto, right? And so there is another area where I think we will all learn a lot. Where right now is just, oh, I'm on the keto 365 days a year. Probably is just a dumb decision, and I should just be able to keep adjusting based on the needs. Which, to a certain degree, I do it. Meaning, if I have an important meeting um, one day, maybe I can play a little bit with carbs because I'm not used to those, and they can give me a spike during the day in terms of energy. And so I try to follow what athletes do, and I just try to apply it at work.
What about micronutrients?
Micronutrients. So I use athletic greens personally. I think the challenge you have with that stuff is you never know if it works.
Yep.
But maybe now, us and you guys can help people see if there is any difference. So, for example, another thing I just started testing is NMN, which is one of those supplements that David Sinclair recommends for longevity. Peter Attia thinks it doesn't work. Sinclair thinks that it works. So I started taking it, and I feel more energized. But I can tell you if it's just placebo, and I'm just convincing myself, or it's true. Um, yeah, there are a couple of ways you can approach content. So first, okay, very personalized information and notification, which I think is the most relevant, at least in the long term. Um, then you can create content to read. The I think that each company needs to take a position if they want to go very scientific. And at that point, I think of Levels and Elysium, or if you want to be a bit more easy to digest, which is probably our approach because we find the other one a bit boring after a while, right? I mean, obviously depends on the persona, but when you look at when you start having 100,000 customers, right, being super technical and detailed and scientific is probably not the best approach for engagement. And so we try to find this balance between probably sharing stories of athletes, right? So you're still learning how the best in class, world class people handle certain topics, but in a way that is more like not discovering the behind the scene. And that is working super well for us. Every time we share any behind the scene from our athletes, people love them.
Mm.
Yeah, I read few of your articles, and I think I agree with that. The key is in simplicity, specifically for when you start scaling and going to the mass market. It makes a difference to make it super easy for your customers to understand what you're talking about. How do you make decisions on how do you make it as easy as possible? What kind of details do you think matter? Because at some point also it would make sense to explain the thinking process behind it or the details behind it. Why do you do this compared this from a scientific perspective?
I mean, I always think there are a lot of decisions when you run a company that is less about the decision itself and is more about how intentional you are, right? So you can go scientific or you can go for athletes. Both they will work. You just need to stand behind that and be intentional and double down. And then you A/B test within that circle, within that area. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's also not your own passion. I think the fact that also Eight Sleep is positioned with athletes and goes in that direction comes from my background. Probably if you have put another CEO doing the same exact company, maybe if it was a PhD from MIT, this company would be, would look way more technical and scientific. But instead, we have that because we have PhDs from MIT working on our machine learning models, but we want to be more the Red Bull of sleep and be perceived for the energy that we give you in the morning more than for the technicalities behind how the product operates. Which, if you think, is a bit the difference between, I don't know, Microsoft and Apple. Apple products, most of the times, they are not technically as so they don't even talk about the technicalities, they just talk about the experience. And so that is our approach as well.
So the way we consider Eight Sleep today is one of the most well-branded companies out there. So how did you approach branding at the beginning? Let's just say from YC, and then how did it shift to reach to the point that you are today? And really, what do we need to do to get to that stage?
So yeah, first of all, I mean, all the credit goes to Alexandra, one of the co-founders, and obviously her team. But if you look back, the biggest inflection point was a very bold decision. That is when we decided to invent sleep fitness, and we really changed our branding from being, I would say, traditional to become a sleep performance brand. And it was a big jump. We had some pushback internally. Uh, Also, with some of our board members, they were, yeah, is it really gonna work? But then there was very quickly an alignment, at least at the board level. But inside the companies, there were still a lot of pushback from some people. Oh, this is because of you, Matteo, just because you train 6, 7 times a week. It's not that everyone wants to do that. How big is this audience? That was the pushback. It's not that everyone in the world is an athlete or kind of a fitness geek. Um, but at the end of the day, we took the bold decision to be contrarian because, again, sleep performance was not a thing. Sleep fitness didn't even exist as a term. We went for that. And again, we were intentional, probably because we are passionate about the topic and now it's working. But we had a couple of sleepless, a couple of nights without sleep about it. It was not an easy, obvious decision.
So it's a lot about the message that you have, right? So it's a lot about deciding what's the message you want to convey. But how did you end up choosing that in the first place?
Because I think for me, it has always been all about the energy you have in the morning, right? If you could skip sleep and still feel great in the morning, you wouldn't sleep or you would sleep less. Let's be real. Everyone in the world, right? We just sleep because of how you feel after a great night of sleep. And so at that point, you understand that the real outcome for the user is the energy they have at 8 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning. And so then you start thinking, who are the best people showing and displaying energy every single day, the maximum expression of energy? And that is athletes, right? They use all their energy to achieve the impossible. And so we always had this vision since 5 years ago. We just finally now focused to put it together and brand it like that.
And it makes sense from a perspective that most people want to become athletes, right? It's like it's more most people are looking towards an athlete and they're thinking, oh, this is the ideal,
Yeah,
and
it's
this can
inspirational.
this
Yeah.
is the inspiration, exactly.
Yeah. If athletes use this product and athletes needs a lot of energy to do what they do, maybe that could be helpful for me as well.
Mm.
At the same time, what you said, Matteo, it was a risky decision. But tell us more. This takes us very well to uh, the business side of things. How was the process when it came to fundraising? And did you guys struggle? Was it difficult or was it easy?
Plus, to say on the point of, we speak to so many hardware startups, and everybody has a very difficult time in pitching to investors. I always get the same question, me and Rauf, and it's like, you guys are doing software. When we do hardware, it's just so difficult to raise. So how was it for you? And how should they approach it?
It was very difficult multiple times. I would say 90% of the times. Um, yeah, in particular, I think no. When we started, there was a moment where hardware was really hot. There were a lot of crowdfunding campaigns that were super successful in 2015. And then unfortunately a lot of those companies they didn't succeed, or they decided to pull back. And so I think more around, if I remember correctly, 2017, no one really wanted to touch hardware at all. It was like the thing where, okay, the company is 100% going to die. It's impossible to scale. It's impossible to find good unit economics with customers for customer acquisition. um, so we just kept pushing. We took our risk. We have been in trouble a couple of times. Um, but at the end of the day, I think we have always been able to find bold investors that they wanted this as much as we wanted. And so they were, I would say, health and sleep pioneers with us, and they give us the money to make it happen. But I think when you look at the people that led our rounds, it's not a coincidence, right? There are people that take big bold bets because 90% of the other people didn't want.
The,
So
the
for
key,
a, go ahead.
yeah, I wanted to say the key here is highlighting bold investors. By saying this, it means you had a bold idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we are doing here, no one has done it, right? And it requires hardware. So just I would say the diligence that you need to build an hardware company with all the risks that you take in terms of inventory, production, recalls, failures, you need to be a bit crazy. So if you can avoid an hardware company, avoid that. Then if you're really passionate, go for it. But it's gonna be hard.
And like at the early stages, the top tier investors, like you raise from Khosla, you raise from Founders Fund. It's like, for a first time founder, how do they approach these guys?
Um, so for me, I was not first time founder. This is my third company, but the other two were not in Silicon Valley, and so they didn't have any reference for me. Right? It's not that they could talk to other people. The other two were in finance and solar. Uh, I mean, I don't know. I think in the early days for me was hard because there was this Italian guy again. I didn't study in the US, so there were no stamps that could prove that I was able to build a business. And when you invest that early, you're really investing on the people. Um, but at the end, they gave me a chance, to me and to my co-founders, and I mean, hopefully, we are delivering.
That's great. What's the so you were speaking about you mentioned people, and you know as much as we do the importance of having an A team to build something exceptional that changes the world, and that's the key for I think the key for success to any business. What's the how do you make sure that you are bringing the right people in the company?
Yeah, I think there is an area where we have learned a lot over time, and I feel now finally we're doing a good job. Um, we have a very detailed process. But I would say the most impactful thing is everyone needs to go through a project to join us, and then they present the project to a panel. If they don't want to do it because they're busy, because they have other offers, they just don't care. And so we lose those candidates. So it's the first step of selection. And then between the process,
Can you give
everyone
us
they
more details on it? Like what's the project?
I mean, it depends for each different department, right? If it's brand, is a brand exercise. If it's product, you should design or think about the UX of a feature. If it's electrical, you need to do electrical. If it's software, you need to code in real time or build almost an hackathon.
How
Uh,
much how much time do you expect the candidate to spend to deliver something like this? We were literally, myself and Kyriakos, before coming to talk to you, discussing on how to build something like this, a project for some of the candidates that are interviewing with us now.
yeah, we are reducing it a bit. I would say probably before, assuming you have another job, it would take you 3 days. I was in the spare time outside the job, right? So about 10 hours, so a lot. Now we are trying to reduce it probably to 2 to 4 hours, um, but we want to keep it. Um,
Is it actually, before you move on to the next points, and that's very important, what's the, is it actually a good determinator on whether they would succeed with 8 sleep, or is it one of the smallest variables then?
no, it is. I don't know. Where it is really helpful is to really avoid hiring a lot of these people. I would say we have, I don't know the exact number, but probably 90% people don't pass the project because um, of our standards. And so sometimes you find people coming from really good organizations, but but then we are not happy with the project itself or with the presentation. Um, but the other big thing is not that you just need to deliver that. Then everyone gives you a rating, and everyone, there are three ratings: pass, hire, and strong hire. And you cannot be hired if you don't have at least one strong hire. So let's say you have 6 hires, we don't hire you. So at least one person, doesn't need to be your manager or your hiring manager, but at least one person in the team needs to be bullish on you.
Mm.
This is like the YC logic, by the way. What's who are the six people that are there?
No, it really depends. It could be four, three. It depends based on your interviews and your panel, but you need at least a strong hire. And usually, what we have seen a correlation between the most successful people at 8 sleep is usually they really have 80% of the people rating them strong hires. The best people, everyone notices these guys are great.
Mm. And do you, when you think about hiring for, let's say, for startups that are just launching, how do the market is super competitive when it comes to engineers, sales, anything. What's the how would you think is the best approach to find the right people?
I think you really need to develop a relationship. I think if I look back, the quality of our hiring at the time, I was definitely not, I would say, as knowledgeable as I am today. And I still, when I talk to early stage startups, maybe as an investor or as a advisor or friend, I still see them not aiming high enough in the quality of the people. While instead, if you think it's just illogical, because if you are three people and you add one person, that is 25% of the IQ of the group. And instead, when you're 100 people, you add one person, you have way more flexibility and screwing up one hire. Um, and so the obsession for the quality of hiring at the small stage is orders of magnitude more important. And that's why investors, the only why they care is the quality of the team.
Yeah, that's exactly so like Kyriakos said. You're giving us the same logic as YC. We spoke with YC partners just 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned is when you add one person, is it significantly increasing the value of the deliverable, or is it linearly increasing it?
Yeah. A couple of questions I usually use is, okay, are they raising the IQ of the executive team? That's one. Two, if they start their company tomorrow, would I invest? Three, do I enjoy spending time with these people? Because that is another problem that happens sometimes with executives. Um, Maybe you just, you don't click. And it's like being friends. It's not that you can get along with everyone. There is a culture. That is the other thing. Sometimes as CEOs, you feel bad because I don't know, it doesn't work with that person, or this person on paper is great, but you don't want to hire them. And at the end of the day, each company has its own culture, and you see more and more as you mature. So, for example, for us, a lot of inbounds now are people that are already in fitness, they're already training. There are people from Red Bull and Nike reaching out for branding, you know. So finally, we reach a point where there is a sort of auto selection because we are not about waffles in bed on a lazy Sunday. And there is nothing bad with that. It's just not who we are and not who I am. And so we respect those people, and other great companies are built around those values. But for us, we want go getters that are in attack mode all the time.
I think it's like when speaking about hiring, both myself and Kyriakos, when before starting the company, the way we were thinking about it, whether it's co-founders or hiring the right people to join us, we had three key fundamental things that we focus on. Number one, we look at the values and principles of the individual, and we would say, okay, would they align with how we are as people? Second, then we look at the chemistry, which is what you mentioned. Does it energize you to work with this person? Is it someone that you want to work with? You can work with for 10 hours plus without getting bored. And then the final one is the technical abilities, which is can they do the job? But surprisingly, we believe that the last one is not as important as the first and the second, because we think that if someone aligns with the values and the principles, they would be individuals who are hungry to learn and they would learn how to do the last one.
Yeah, so it's like technically we get a lot of people. We might get applications from Google and Facebook and all that. Technically they might be exceptional, and then culturally they don't fit, and we just reject those people. But it's like it's about the unit, right? It's about the team you're building, and if the team has a similar culture and it's go-getters, it's doers, they're humble and they're driven. It's a very specific type of person. But having said that, you mentioned about investing, which we talk about this a few times. You started investing and you created your own fund as well. Can you tell us like some of the mistakes you've done by investing? What should we avoid, and what are you looking for? How can people reach you?
Yeah. Um, so the bottom line, I oversimplified over time. You really invest just in people. You don't know if the idea will change, if they will, do something completely different. But as long as you trust the people, that is your best chance. And the second is also don't try to be too sophisticated about really thinking about the time and what they're doing, because again, the most unexpected companies are the ones that probably can deliver you one of the biggest returns. For me, the one of the biggest returns are from two people that were in YC with me. I wanted to invest in their YC company. There was demo day. I missed that opportunity. They sold that company, but then they built another one that now is massive. And when they told me they were starting a company, I didn't even really care too much about what they were doing. I just knew these two guys can do anything everywhere. You can drop them in the desert and they will figure it out. And and I think that is what happened. So just all about people.
We had a chat last week with one of our investors, Lance Armstrong, and he said that one of the only thing that he follows when it comes to investing are three things. So number one, founders; number two, founders; and number three, founders. So that's in line with Lance.
Cool. Thank you so much for the chat. It was really cool.
Yeah, Matteo,
Fantastic.
just a last one. What should we expect from Sleep? What's the next 2 years?
A lot of great stuff. I mean, I think we are going above and beyond. Um, we don't rest on what we have. I think, in good or in bad, I always push the team to be stretched as much as I can to achieve more. And the reason is because we are passionate about what we are doing. So there will be new hardware, new software. And at the end of the day, it goes back to sleep compression and saving your life, right? So we'll just make a step towards these two North Stars.
Great.
Fantastic.
Matteo, what a fantastic discussion. Thank you very much for your time. We not only learned a lot from you today, but we also, it's great to catch up again with you.
Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Matteo. We'll speak soon.
I guess.
Bye.
Bye bye.